What really happens when China SZ-10 challenges? America MH-60R in the skies over the Taiwan Strait. Who holds the advantage? The night skies above the Taiwan Strait are deceptively quiet. Radar screens hum in dimly lit control rooms. Operators squint at glowing blips, and the rhythmic thump of helicopter rotors cuts through the tension. Then it happens a Chinese Player Z-10 gunship veers dangerously close to a U.S. Navy MH-60R or Romeo helicopter. Their flight paths intersect, the gap shrinking to mere seconds from collision. For a brief moment, the fate of two superpowers rests not in high-level negotiations, not in missiles or aircraft carriers, but in the hands of two pilots locked in a silent game of brinkmanship. And the world watches, holding its breath. This is not just about helicopters. It is about the broader shadow war unfolding in the skies and seas of East Asia. A war of signals, intimidation, and razor-thin margins. China calls it gray zone strategy. Action short of outright war, but aggressive enough to wear down an opponent. Over 100 times in recent months, Chinese aircraft have crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait, daring Taiwanese defenses to react and daring Washington to respond. But this helicopter standoff is different. It's not Taiwan being tested, it's America. Why would China risk such a dangerous maneuver? Was it a bold show of strength or an act of desperation? The Z-10's close approach wasn't about firepower, it was about messaging. By flying aggressively at a U.S. MH-60R, China wasn't trying to shoot it down. It was saying, we are here, and we are not afraid to push. But in the process, it also revealed the very limits of its own playbook. The U.S. MH-60R Romeo is not just another helicopter. It is a floating arsenal of sensors, electronic warfare systems, and weapons. Its an APS-153 radar can sweep vast stretches of ocean. Its an ALQ-210 electronic warfare suite can sniff out and catalog enemy frequencies. In fact, during that 72-minute encounter while the Z-10 postured and weaved, the American crew was calmly collecting intelligence, recording every radar emission, every heat signature, every move. What looked like a standoff was, in reality, a goldmine of data flowing back into the vast U.S. intelligence network. And yet, the question lingers, what if? What if one rotor blade clipped the other? What if a pilot overcorrected? Would Washington have been forced to retaliate? Would Beijing have doubled down? Military history is full of wars sparked not by grand strategies, but by accidents. The 2001 EP-3 incident, when a U.S. surveillance plane collided with a Chinese fighter, almost spiraled out of control. Could history be repeating itself? America's advantage lies not just in its weapons, but in the systems that bind them together. The MH-60R is never truly alone. It is linked to carrier strike groups, to satellites, to E-2D Hawkeye airborne early warning planes. If the Z-10 is a lone wolf, the Romeo is a node in an entire ecosystem. And yet, one must ask, are these systems too complex, too dependent on seamless coordination? What happens if an adversary finds a way to disrupt the links? Electronic warfare, cyber intrusions, or simply overwhelming numbers could test even the strongest networks. Consider the U.S. Navy's carrier strike groups, patrolling the Pacific as symbols of power. The Gerald R. Ford class, the largest and most advanced carriers ever built, can launch over 160 sorties a day. Each one is guarded by Aegis destroyers, Virginia-class submarines, and logistics ships that can sustain operations indefinitely. In contrast, China's Fujian, though an impressive step forward, is still untested. Its J-15 and J-35 fighters may look formidable, but they lack the combat record of America's F-A-18s and F-35Cs. The United States has spent decades perfecting carrier warfare. China is trying to catch up in less than 20 years. Can speed truly defeat experience? But let's not be complacent. China's rapid progress cannot be dismissed. The Fujian's electromagnetic catapults rival America's EMOS technology. The J-35 is clearly inspired by fifth-generation stealth fighters. China's missile arsenal, particularly the DF-21D and DF-26 carrier killers, poses real threats. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If even one of those missiles were to hit its mark, the cost in lives, in prestige, in politics would be catastrophic. Can America be certain that its Aegis shields and SM-6 interceptors are enough to stop every incoming wave? This is where the controversy deepens. Some argue that the U.S. military is resting too much on its legacy systems, assuming dominance because of history. The Patriot missile, for example, once celebrated as an impenetrable shield, has been challenged in conflicts like Ukraine. Could something similar happen in the Pacific, where Chinese weapons are designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in U.S. defenses? And yet, others counter that war is not won by statistics or specifications, but by training, doctrine, and willpower. The MH-60R encounter with the Z-10 proved that cool heads and disciplined crews can turn a provocation into an opportunity. The U.S. pilots didn't panic, didn't escalate. They outcollected, outthought, and ultimately outplayed their rival. Isn't that the real measure of strength? Let's imagine two scenarios. In the first, a confrontation near Taiwan spirals out of control. Chinese pilots push harder. American crews hold their ground, and a collision occurs. The world rushes into crisis. The second scenario is more subtle. China continues its gray zone tactics, forcing the U.S. and Taiwan to spend resources, time, and attention. No shots are fired, but the strain builds. Which scenario is more dangerous? Which one brings Beijing closer to its goals? The truth may be that America's greatest challenge is not in a single clash of weapons, but in the slow, grinding war of nerves. The U.S. can dominate in open battle, but can it sustain the patience required for endless provocations? For months and years of being tested at the edges? Some say yes, pointing to America's unmatched global reach. Others worry that public opinion, politics, and cost will wear down resolve. So we are left with a paradox. On paper, the United States still reigns supreme. Its carriers are unmatched, its aircraft battle-tested, its systems integrated on a scale China cannot replicate, but paper is not the battlefield. And Beijing's gray zone strategy is designed precisely to blur that line between peace and war, forcing Washington to fight not just with weapons, but with endurance. In the end, perhaps the lesson of that near collision between the Z-10 and the MH-60R is this. Strength is not just about who has the deadliest missile or the stealthiest jet. It's about who can keep their cool when the margin for error is razor thin. The U.S. Navy showed that day that technology and training go hand in hand. But the question remains, how many more times can this game be played before fate intervenes? So I'll leave you with this. Do you believe China's gray zone tactics are signs of a rising power ready to challenge U.S. dominance, or are they the desperate gestures of a country still years behind in true combat readiness? And if a single rotor blade or missile misfires, will the world witness the spark that ignites the Pacific?